I was ready to lose it. I was gonna call Gordon and be like, Gordon, I'm not doing this today because I don't know what's going on.
I wouldn't have blamed you because I've been there. And listen, both of you guys are quite a bit younger than me, and I'm sure much more tech savvy.
Yeah.
Every day, I want to throw something through the wall or out the window.
Oh my goodness, it's
like
annoying.
A really cheap Garmin watch to keep track of like my running and stuff. My roommate convinced me to get it. I can't even get the thing to give me like my heart rate and the time. I'm like, yeah, I just eliminated my distance.
Oh gosh. Well, John, thank you again for taking the time, man. I don't know if
Yeah,
God will give you that spiel.
Yeah. I appreciate you for being a part of this OPSM podcast. I'll do a quick introductory.
Okay.
At the bottom of the screen, we have Jesse Falengo, who's our OPSM GM. And then on the left hand of our screen, we have OKC Energy head coach, John Pascarella. Did I say that right?
You did. You
Perfect.
did perfectly. You must be half Italian at least.
I had a lot of Italian friends back in Ottawa,
Good.
so that's the good thing. So, yeah.
Fantastic.
So, John, basically in this podcast, we kind of wanted to let the viewers know a little bit about your journey on the playing side and also the management side and, everything leading into OKC Energy position. So I guess my first question for you is, where did the origin of soccer, where did the love for soccer begin from?
I'll tell you what, you started me with a softball question. So thanks for having me on.
Yeah.
And I am the son of Italian immigrant parents. They came over, not on the boat, they came on the plane. They actually met on the airplane, visiting families in New Jersey, who actually, ironically, were in the same neighborhood. They became friendly. They eventually got married and had me. So I grew up in a very ethnic part of New Jersey.
Okay.
And was kind of blessed that way. My dad loved the game. He played it when he grew up. It was, according to him, never really a big-time player or anything, just liked playing it, like I guess most Italian kids did.
Mm-hmm.
So I grew up with it. Before we even had a league in my hometown in New Jersey, we're talking about 1970, early 70s. So eventually they started the league. I was in third grade, I believe. My dad actually said to me and the coach, he's a horrible player, but he's a really good goalkeeper. And somehow I ended up in the goal. Wow. And it stuck throughout most of my youth career and all the way up. But the passion for it came from my dad, came from my background. The few times it was on TV every week, because it was much different back then than it is now. You couldn't, it was very hard to find on TV back then. But the few times Soccer Made in Germany or the Rye Corporation had an Italian game on, my dad would always have those games on TV. So I grew up around it. I kicked the ball with him. And then when the league started in my town in New Jersey, I started playing and it went from there.
Yeah, John, you, from reading from the OKC website, you spent some time in Peru. How did that come about? And give us that story, please.
Okay, so it's kind of a long-winded story. I'll make it as short as I can, but the opportunity came.
Yeah.
We worked with a goalkeeper in the U.S. who was West Germany's national team goalkeeper at that time.
Wow.
That was Tony Schumacher. Had 2 World Cups, outstanding goalkeeper, outstanding human being, really good guy. People came from all over the world to see him, to work with him, to bring kids, to watch how he worked. I was invited to work with him and had an opportunity there, and I met a ton of people, and my network grew because of it. From the Peruvian Federation, were watching and asked me if I would come to Lima and put on a soccer camp for goalkeepers.
Oh, wow.
And after doing that 1 year, the following year, they asked me to come back and begin and create a curriculum for their goalkeeping school. So they asked me to come back and do that for the federation. I was finishing my degree in college, and so I could do my internship there. So my internship was actually creating their curriculum. And while I was doing that, now I'm a senior in college, the NASL has folded in our country.
Yeah.
USL's basically just trying to stay afloat because it's not what it was or what it is today.
Yeah.
And I'm over there writing this curriculum and training with a few pro teams. One asked me to sign. I couldn't have signed fast enough. Yeah, and that was it. 2 out of the next 3 years I spent there playing for the same coach, 2 different clubs. Spent a season in very close to Lima. I lived in Lima, but played in a town called Callao, just outside of it, for sport boys. And then played way up in northern Peru that borders Ecuador in Sullana for Alianza Sullana 2 years later.
So you played for sport boys?
I played for Sport Boys.
You guys in
wow.
pink, yeah?
You know
Yeah,
the
of
club?
course. Yeah, my close friends of the family are Peruvian, so I'm an Alianza Lima guy on the low.
That was my first connection, boys.
Wow.
My first connection to Peru. When
Sport
I went there, I knew someone that was connected there. I was writing the curriculum for the federation. This guy was connected there. They connected with the people in Callao. I trained with them. I trained with Universitario, which is another one of the big clubs.
Yes, yes.
In fact, they ended up beating us in the playoffs in La Liga.
Wow,
But yeah, small world. It's great
what a
to
small world.
yeah.
John, talk to me about the mindset and the culture out in Peru. What were the things that you learned being in that environment?
You know, it's interesting. I had this discussion with a friend last night. People talk about cultural differences, and they are there. They are real. They exist, and you have to know and understand that when you go into a different place, whether you're working as a player or as a coach.
Yeah.
I'll give you a perfect example from Peru. I'm a goalkeeper. I'm in the goal, and we're playing out of the back, and we've got no problems because we've got good technical players, and we're playing. But all of a sudden, the guy's under pressure.
Yeah.
He's having to deal with it, and God forbid, because it's not macho, God forbid, he turns around and just plays me, no chance. And you can ask for it, you can yell for it, you can have a discussion in the locker room, you can talk about it all week in training, it doesn't matter. He's not giving you the ball.
Yeah.
Because the fans at home are going to look at him and be like, hey, sissy, how come you couldn't beat that guy who was defending? That's a cultural difference that as a goalkeeper I had to learn to deal with. Because now it was almost useless for me to go, I'm going to go support him. Because I'm never going to get the ball. I'm just so when we lose it, I'm standing there.
Oh, my goodness.
So those are some of the things that as a 21-year-old kid, you kind of pick up down there and you go, wow, this is different. But it truly is different because it's ingrained in them.
Yeah.
That one-on-one battle, that duel is what they exist on, what they pride themselves on. Whether it's soccer, whether it's in the bullfighting ring, whether it's anywhere, that duel is their life's blood.
Jeez.
That's different. So when you came back to the U.S., obviously before you started your coaching career, what led you to that path and how did you get there? In terms of coaching? In
terms of playing or the coaching? From playing to coaching?
Playing to coaching, yes.
There was no grand scheme or design to it. In fact, as a player, I never gave a thought to coaching. So I hadn't done any badges, coaching licenses, courses, none of that stuff.
Wow.
A good student of the game and kept myself in pretty good shape and did all the right things, I think, for me. But I was also very selfish. I could barely keep track of myself, let alone think about keeping track of a team.
Yeah, 22 guys.
Coaching didn't appeal to me at all. And I'd been dabbling in business during my career and working in the fitness industry. And that's what I was actually doing, probably a year after I'd retired from playing. We retired. And Sasha Sharovsky approached me, the coach at the University of Maryland. He was there then. He's still there now. Sasha approached me and said, listen, I know a little bit about your history and your background. I know you're here in the area and you're done playing. Would you be interested in coaching? And I thought about it and went, nah, not really interested. And he kept on me for a number of months and we kept talking about it and discussing it. And then finally I said, yes. I said I would do it for a year and then at the end of the year decide whether that made sense or not. At the end of the year, I was almost embarrassed to tell him how much I'd fallen in love with coaching.
Oh, wow.
Really dropped everything else from that point on and coached at Maryland for 3 years, then took on club teams, ODP teams, high school teams, and started to learn my craft and how to coach and deal with problems and parents who were just as bad to deal with, if not worse, than agents. And deal with all of these logistical, organizational, as well as teaching and developing methodology and philosophy things, putting them all together, and then realizing, hey, I love doing this more than the kids actually love playing. I'm about it than 90% of the kids that are involved in it. You go back to where I felt really comfortable. I've been a good pro, but I was a combative and competitive pro as a player. And I thought that's probably where I should be with my coaching as well. So I just started to reconnect with the network and see if I could get my foot in the door. And eventually that's what happened.
John, speaking to most coaches, when they first get their self ready for the first, coaching experience, what are the main challenges that you face when, you're about to, step in that type of environment? Is it the players? Is it understanding the identity of that you want your players to play? What is it exactly?
Well, it's always a little different. It's always a little bit the same. Like, for example, what I walked into this year in OKC was different than what I walked into my very first year at Sporting Kansas City.
Yeah.
One, I'm an assistant, the other, I'm a head coach. One, I'm a naive, insecure kid wondering if pro players will accept what I have to say. The other is I'm not as naive and I'm not as young a kid, but I'm now a head coach, and are they going to accept what I have to say?
Yeah.
So those pieces of it are very similar. What's different is that you're just so much more experienced as you're entering those different roles. For me, it really was about setting a tone as quickly as I could about who I was, because I truly believe people will follow me for me and not for what I say. They'll follow me for what I do.
Yeah.
Just have to know I care about them before they even care that I know anything about the game. Like that old saying, people don't care what you know until they know that you care.
Yeah.
They needed, on my first day, what I thought they needed wasn't some long-winded presentation from me, but it was simply the thing that, fellas, we're all new to this. We're new to each other and this relationship. And I know if I want to teach you all about tactics and technique and all this about the game, what I got to really do is get to your hearts and minds first.
Yes.
If you trust me and to believe in me, then you'll listen to what I have to say, and we'll go from there. I got to make you comfortable. If I can make you comfortable, then you will allow me to make you more competent. And from there, we grow. So that's what I told them. That whole thing took 5 minutes, and it was one slide on a PowerPoint presentation that basically was a pyramid that said comfort, competence, confidence.
Oh, wow.
Because I have to make them comfortable. And you can see it's happening. It didn't take a week. It didn't take a month. You can see it's taking time. I could see it building over preseason. Some trust there that starts to allow them each day, each week to believe, even though I might not agree with what he's saying soccer-wise right now, I'm going to try it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, and this COVID thing and navigating it, and bringing people back to work and return to play protocols and making sure their safety is in the forefront of our minds has helped build that trust. Because when they started to come back to train, saw all the things we put in place to make sure they were safe. Arrival times, masks, parking spaces delineated one to the other, times they walk through, their temperature being taken, then they can take their mask off, where they're set up to be able to stand and train so that they're separated by yards, not feet. So it's building that trust. It's them knowing we care and give a shit about them, because they don't give a shit about what we know about soccer until they know that. Once they know that, then they're like, okay, what do you know about the game?
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? And that's true of all of us. That's true of all of us. You guys don't want to waste your time with me if you don't have an idea that, hey, he's a decent guy and he wants, and vice versa.
Yeah.
I'm not going to put time on a podcast if everybody tells me these guys are trouble.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't do it. You know what I mean? But that's,
that works.
and that's why it goes back to what we were talking earlier, Godwin, about your word. I think we were off camera at the time. Your word,
big time.
It better be golden.
Yeah.
It better be golden, especially if you've got a big network.
Yeah.
Word spreading.
No, it's true. I completely agree.
John, I wanted to ask you about your time at Kansas City just a little bit. You're fairly successful, and you saw them win, I guess, one MLS Cup. You were there for a couple of open tournaments as well. You know, what gives a championship side, you know, besides quality, what really gives it that push to be great? Yeah,
that is a great question. And I'll give you what I think is the answer from my perspective, having seen it.
Yeah. Before
we ever went for a couple of conference titles that eventually led to an MLS title, we had 2.5 years of relative lack of success. When I say relative, I mean we didn't even make the playoffs.
Yeah.
However, our ownership group believed in what we were doing and the vision that we had and the progress, very little, but progress that we were making. I shouldn't say very little. It was very little to the naked eye and in the wins and losses points column. But it was very little in terms of the culture that we were changing and slowly turning over the roster and getting them to play in a way we wanted them to play. If the ownership group hadn't given us some time and leeway, we'd have never been successful.
Yeah.
But they did.
Yes, yeah.
And because that, they allowed us to turn over the locker room that we didn't think was right in terms of leadership, mentality, culture, and also in terms of the way we wanted to play the game.
Mm-hmm.
All of a sudden, you fast forward a few years, we're a little bit better. We're making playoffs. We're getting to conference finals, but we're losing them. And we're losing to Houston. And then we're losing to Houston again. And we felt like the Chicago Bulls against the Detroit Pistons.
Yeah.
We get kicked in the final round of the playoffs every year.
Yeah.
We got past them, and we ended up winning MLS Cup. And a thing that helped us to do that in 2013 was what we did in 2012, which was win the Open Cup.
Yeah.
Because that knockout competition hardens you just as the playoffs do. And we started to learn how to play in that type of environment. This is just a regular season environment. And so we ended up winning that cup in 2012 and MLS Cup in 2013, and then another Open Cup a couple years after that. But to answer your question, what I really believe was a big deal was the time they allowed us to do it. Because you've got a fairly competent group leading the way on the technical side. Most of them are going to need time.
Yeah.
Given that time, I do believe most of them are going to succeed. I mean, if you're crap, you're crap. But I know a lot of guys that just weren't given enough time. And if they had that time, they would have been great.
Yeah.
You know? So we were lucky. We were lucky. We had great ownership that allowed us some leeway and some room to build the locker room and the culture and ultimately the success that we all craved.
Yeah, you always hear luck as a deciding factor. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I think this kind of leads into my next question was, John, now that you're the head coach at OKC Energy, what are the major differences, or if there is any major differences between the MLS and the USL?
Major differences. Well, I mean, one of them is the speed of play because of the relative talent difference. So there's not a major difference between the two levels. And you can see that every year when they play each other in the Open Cup. And sometimes it's a second team roster versus a first team roster, or the other team's got a second team roster versus whatever. You can see that the two are fairly compatible, but MLS's quality is still a little bit higher. That's why they're playing MLS and making a little bit more money. Apart from that, I don't think that there are many differences. You've got some guys that are on their way up. You've got some guys that are on their way down. You've got some younger guys. You've got some older guys. And really what you have that is most similar to MLS is you guys who are passionate about making that their life.
Yeah.
And that's what's fun. That's what's enjoyable. Going to work every day with guys that want to grind, that love being around the game and don't feel like it's, geez, man, I got to do this again. They feel like, shit, this is hard, but let's go. Let's play. Let's compete. Let's battle a little bit.
Yeah.
Have people like that around you. Makes it easy.
John, I had a question. This is a bit of a tough question. In terms of
tough for me or tough for you?
Tough for you in the position.
Because my connection's not real good. Go ahead.
I'm gonna need an answer though.
So tough for me.
My first question is, the three separate league model that we have in the U.S. Now you have MLS, USL Division, NISA. In terms of just what that does for development of American football, can you speak on that? And also, is this sustainable for all the leagues to have, a top division that's seen as the paradise land, and then everything else trickled down, and there's no real vertical integration? So that's my question for you.
So those are two very different questions. I'm going to answer the first one, then you're going to remind me of the second one.
Okay.
I believe, forget about the logistical issues, the political issues, that the more opportunities, so the more teams there are in NISA, the more teams there are in the USL, the more teams there are in MLS. To a certain degree, the more opportunities there are for guys to play against the best competition in organized matches with decent referees, and eventually the cream always rises to the top. So if teams are all competing and all doing that over the course of time, some of those MLS guys drop, and some of those USL guys go up, and some of those USL guys drop, and some of those NISA guys come up, and you start to sift through the players. So it's tremendous that you have it, because all you have, in my view, as a coach or a player, is more opportunities to play and to coach. That's my opinion about that. The second piece of the question was more related to what?
Is it sustainable?
I think you're going to have some teams come and go. I think you might see this in, maybe not so much in MLS, but maybe in the USL because of COVID. Because of such a major life-changing event, which changed the economy. Some people may not be able to afford to stay in it. Yeah. So there's always going to be a little bit of instability, but I think as big picture, you have multiple leagues in this country. You might have one big one, but you're going to have multiple leagues because of the size of the country, and some might be better than others in certain regions, or some might be very good in both regions. Right now, I think that's where USL excels. Two groups of teams are pretty balanced and equal. So people will argue independent clubs versus MLS-sponsored clubs or owned clubs. Yeah. There's a little difference in the gap there, and some competitive inequalities because of the way you could bring players up and down roster-wise. But in general, all those opportunities to play games competitively will make us better over time. Will make us better. Yeah. Now, there's a whole lot of political shit that goes on at a different level.
Yeah, I was supposed to say.
They got to figure out. That could end up being all of one entity, or it could be three separate entities. I don't know. I mean, America is America, so the business will take over. And free market will play a part, and some might stay, some might not. But USL has kind of stood the test of time because shit, I'm old and I played in it. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yes, sir.
It was the USISL and it was the USL, and at one point in time it was split between the East Coast and the West Coast. They were kind of separate till the playoffs, but it's been in a different form, or many different forms. Over a number of years, but it's been, I think, great. And to answer your question, the more soccer jobs for the players, the more soccer jobs for the coaches,
100%,
agents for whatever. But I can only speak to those two, the players and the coaches. I think better for the game here because we'll all learn, we'll all get better from it and compete, and be higher and at higher standards. And the people that come behind us in the next generation, they'll bring it to the next level. Yeah, hopefully, you know. So
thanks, John.
John, going back to OKC Energy and your team, I wanted to talk about the recruitment aspect. What are the things that you look for, characteristics-wise or talent-wise, in building your team? What are for the viewers that are watching, all the football players that are watching? How can I get onto John's team at OKC Energy?
Yeah. Well, one, you got to be a good player. Obviously. You got to be a good player, but you have to have. You got to be pretty iron-willed. I was that way as a player. I grew up in New Jersey, where mentality has a lot to do with it. At the professional level, I played for the gentleman that I played for in Peru, who was that way, Tano Bartoli. I played for John Kerr in the USL, very that way, and I worked for Peter. All guys with very strong, dominant personalities. Yeah. And had an imprint and an impact on their teams. So, you know, I kind of forget, and I think I'm getting away a little bit from your initial question, but can you repeat?
Yeah. So I guess my original question was kind of more so like, what are the characteristics and what are the things that you look for in a player building?
So that steely will, that want to compete is important for me. Yes, I want good players. I want good technical players, but I don't want good technical players that when they piss the ball away, somebody else got to get it and they want to play again. You guys that have some bite. And so for me, that's a character thing. Yes, you can teach it a little bit and you can hone it to make reactions to transitional moments a little bit quicker, but it's really a mentality that's instilled in you when you're younger. And I don't want to spend a lot of time instilling that in the guys. I want guys that are steely. I want guys that are gonna be that way, you know, because they're gonna have to be that way off the field as well. They're gonna have to endure some shit in their personal lives that they're gonna have to refrain from and say no to, and be able to deal with that and the consequences of people talking about them or not being included in their same social groups because they need to stay on the straight and narrow and do what they do. Day in and day out with a discipline that not everybody really requires in daily life. So that really is it for me.
That's perfect.
Perfect, John. Thank you. I think we're going to get into the fun portion of the interview.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, you might have enjoyed that. I don't know. So.
Yeah, I did. I loved it. I love it. I just hate it when I don't remember stuff in the middle of the question.
That's our fault.
My phone had just rang and I saw who it was and I was like, damn, I should have never looked. I gotta turn my phone over.
Yeah.
No, we'll take the
I
blame.
need to pick that
basketball.
up. I can't pick that up now.
Oh, God.
So sorry about that. But anyway,
No problem.
so let's
Thank
get into the
you.
fun.
Thank you. So, from the manager perspective, we're going to ask you to build your team.
Okay.
And so we're going to give you a couple players from each, the down the spine, of course, and we're going to ask you to pick which one you prefer for your squad. So, for
These high-level players, these
no, they're going to be legends.
players, these USL guys,
They're
these
legends.
Legends.
Oh,
It won't be
legends.
easy.
Yeah.
Legends. No, it won't be easy, but it'll be fun. Picking my team.
All right, perfect. So we're going to go goalkeepers, the great American goalkeepers, right? So Brad Friedel, Casey Keller, or Tim Howard. Who do you have in the back?
I think overall the most accomplished would probably be Brad.
Yes, he spent a long time.
And I think, listen, they're all competitive.
Yeah.
They're all competitive. Brad in a very European way, which is maybe why sometimes people didn't understand him in the locker room in New England, you know. But that fire and that drive has gotten him very far in his career. I take that guy in my goal any day of the week.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. All right, then we got to go center backs. As you have some Italian descent, I got to ask, are we going to go Maldini or are we taking Cannavaro?
Ooh, I can't take both?
One, this is your spine. We're playing a 4-3. We're playing a 3. I don't know.
Yeah, you only want 3 defenders.
We're playing 3-4-3.
You only want 3 defenders.
And there's one center back.
And it's the modern game today. Both of them can play in it because neither one fouled people at all.
Both technically good.
Maldini might be more adaptable.
Yes, clean left.
So I'm going to go with Maldini because if something happens to a guy, I might have to move a guy around. So I'm going Maldini.
You're not taking the Ballon d'Or winner?
I was about to say that.
No, I'm not. And it's listen, they're both awesome. You're making it difficult, but I'm not changing my mind. I'm sticking with Maldini.
Okay, perfect. So then back to the American scene.
Okay.
In your midfield, Michael Bradley or Claudio Reyna?
Don't we need another center back first? Oh, we're playing 3 in the back. It's a goalkeeper.
Okay.
Like 8 guys in the back.
All right, I got a center back question then. We got Rio Ferdinand or Jamie Carragher?
I would take Ferdinand.
No, that's an easy one, man. That's an easy one, Jesse.
But I'll put him in there as a sub just in case. Rio's a sub. He's an alternate.
All right, perfect.
Middle of the park, you said is who? The
Michael Bradley or Claudio Reyna?
Claudio.
Reason?
Fan.
Big fan?
Yeah, I actually think Claudio is probably the best player we've ever produced.
Wow.
Ever produced. And another guy who, by the way, played in a couple different professional leagues. So did Michael, and played a couple different positions where they played him in the middle, they played him out wide as an outside back. He was good, man. Claudio was good.
All right, and then we got in the attacking midfield role. It's the tough one. Zinedine Zidane or Andres Iniesta?
Zidane.
Yeah, of course.
Goal scorer, that's why?
Zidane. Yeah, because you're going to get both from him.
Yeah.
Fighting.
And you know what you're going to get?
Mm-hmm.
You're going to get passion.
Yeah.
It's going to slam his head into somebody's friggin'
Yes. You know what? Landon said the same thing, so
yeah.
we might think alike,
because
right?
we're all a little nuts, by the way. Landon and Zidane.
Don't kill me.
Yeah.
All right, then.
By the way, he's built a nice team, hasn't he?
Yes, for the past 5 years. Is
down in San Diego. He's built a nice team down there, man.
Yeah.
Excited. And then you got to pick the striker. Who you got up top?
Any striker I want?
Anybody.
Anyone you want.
It's easy one for me. Drogba.
Yeah.
Wow. That's a surprise.
And I'll tell you why. It's because of the way I like to play.
Yeah.
I like to play. Because I do want to play like a little tiki-taka shit. But the team is going to press you, and they're going to make it difficult at times. And no, if he's up top, we can get it to him, and he's going to get it, and no one else is.
No.
The rest of the group will join, and then we'll play from there.
That's a battering ram, man.
He's my security blanket.
Yeah.
He would be brilliant. By the way, if he's available, I'll take him. I don't care if he's first right of refusal or whatever. If he wants to come play, I'll make it happen.
That's hilarious.
Thank you, John.
Yeah. I appreciate you taking
He's not your client, is he?
No.
Okay. I was gonna say, because that'd be too funny.
That's
Oh,
awesome.
my goodness. Oh, my
Yeah.
goodness.
No, but John, I really appreciate you taking the time to be on this OPSM podcast. I really do.
Of course. It was
Awesome.
my pleasure. I had a blast. This is honestly the most I've laughed during this whole COVID thing.
Oh, my.
Amazing.
And listen, it all started when Jesse came on the camera and was like,
I'm so happy I didn't do anything crazy. That would have been so embarrassing.